Hello. Today we're going to be working with the urinary system, and first of all we need to know the organs of the urinary system. And this organ of the urinary system includes two kidneys located in the abdominal cavity, two ureters, these hoses conducting the urine from the kidneys to the urinary bladder, then one urinary bladder, and it's going to be a final conduct in order to eliminate the urine called urethra. Then we have two kidneys, two ureters, one urinary bladder, and one urethra. As one of the main organs of the urinary systems, kidneys, the main functions for the kidneys is the excretion of the waste product from the blood. Then we're cleaning our blood with these two filters. We are able to regulate the blood volume and the pressure because of the kidneys as well. We have the regulation of the blood solid concentrations, the concentration of potassium, sodium, and so many solids we have in our blood. Some of them are regulated by the kidneys. We are able to regulate as well the extracellular fluid, the interstitial fluid, and intravascular fluid, pH, because they have a role in the regulation of the pH and the regulation of the red blood cell synthesis because of the production of the erythropoietin hormone. And finally, they are able to help with the regulation of the vitamin D synthesis. The kidneys are located high in the abdominal pelvic cavity on either side of the vertebral column, as you can see here. And roughly, they are between T12 and L3. They are located behind the peritoneum. Remember the serous membrane covering in the abdominal cavity, here in blue, lining the abdominal cavity. They are located behind that. And then they are retroperitoneal organs. They are lying outside and behind the peritoneum. Then they are protected by anteriorly by the internal organs and posteriorly by the back musculature and the ribs. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left side because of the liver. The liver is pushing down the right kidney. They have adipose tissue surrounding, and it's going to be protecting these kidneys as a cushion. They have as well some connective tissue connecting or fixing the kidneys to the abdominal cavity. This is the renal fascia. And they have as well this entrance of the great vessels and nerves, and it's including as well the renal pelvis, which is called hilum. It's the entrance to the kidneys, including the blood vessels, the nerves, and the renal pelvis and ureter. There is a fibrous connective tissue surrounding each kidney on the outside, and this is called the renal capsule. Both of them, they have fibrous connective tissue covering the kidneys. This is called again the renal capsule. They are in close relation with the adrenal glands, and they are located superiorly to the kidneys. They are located laterally to the abdominal aorta. Actually, the renal artery is a direct branch from the aorta, abdominal aorta. They are in relationship as well with the inferior vena cava, and they are laterally to the inferior vena cava, and the renal veins are draining directly into the inferior vena cava. Now we have a section of the kidneys, and the outer part, the exterior part, the outermost layer is called the cortex, this outer part. And the inner part here is called the medulla. Here we have, again, the cortex surrounding the outer part of the internal anatomy of the kidneys, the cortex, and the inner part, the innermost layer, is the medulla. The cortex is the outer portion of the kidney. It's underlying the renal capsule, and it's composed of renal corpuscles and tubules. We're gonna learn that later on. The medulla is the inner portion. It's the inner portion of the kidney. It's underlying the cortex and consists of renal pyramids and renal columns. These cone-shaped structures here are called renal pyramids, and they are cone-shaped structures extending from the cortex to the renal papilla, which is the end right here. This is the papilla of the pyramid, and they are composed of nephron loops and collecting ducts. Then these tips at the end of the renal pyramids are called renal papillas, and they are delivering the urine from the collecting duct to the minor calyces. Between pyramids, we have these pieces uh, um, emulating the cortex. These pieces, this extension of the cortex into the medulla, they are called renal columns, and they are projections of the cortex inside of the medulla. Then we have these cups, usually are between 3 and 8 in each kidney. They are called calyces, and we have minor calyces like this two, like this two, like this one, and these are major calyces down here, and they are draining the urine to this space in the hilum of the kidney called the renal pelvis. This is the renal pelvis, this space. Then we have the minor calyces, the major calyces, and then we have this space draining the urine called the renal pelvis. Finally, the urine collected here in the renal pelvis is going to be collected by this tube. Uh, it's going to conduct the urine into the urinary bladder. The ureter is going to be conducting the urine from the pelvis, from the kidney, into the urinary bladder. These three elements, two vascular and one for conduction of the urine, the renal artery, the renal vein, and the renal pelvis with the ureter, these point, it's the hilum or entrance for the kidney, and it's the renal artery again, the renal vein, and the ureter is connected with the kidney, is the hilum. Now we're going to be discussing the renal blood supply. The kidneys are responsible for filtering the blood. Then it's not a surprise that any given time they contain about 20% of the cardiac output. The circulatory pattern is organized so that the blood is evenly distributed to the approximately 1 million nephrons in each kidney. Then if our cardiac output it's about 5 liters, maybe 1 liter is going to be inside our kidneys every single time, filtering that blood, that plasma, in order to eliminate the waste and producing urine. The main blood supply of the kidneys is the renal artery, and the renal artery is abdominal. It's a branch of the abdominal aorta. It's delivering blood to the segmental arteries, and these segmental arteries are branches of the renal artery, and they are delivering blood into the interlobar arteries, and these interlobar arteries are branches of the segmental artery, and they are delivering they are traveling toward the cortex with the renal within the renal column. This is the renal column. And then they are delivering blood to the arcuate arteries, which is this one, the arcuate artery. And the arcuate arteries, they are originate from the interlobar arteries, and they are traveling along the boundary between the medulla and the cortex. And they are delivering the blood to the cortical radiate arteries, which is the final, before the nephron is a final branch. These final cortical radiate or interlobular arteries are branches of the arcuate arteries, and they are found here in the cortex, and they are delivering the blood to the afferent arterioles. This is the afferent arteriole, and which is branch of the interlobular artery or cortical radiate artery. Then it's going to be feeding the corpuscle. It's going to be feeding this network of capillaries, and this network of capillaries is called the glomerulus. Then we have an arteriole going out from the glomerulus, which is the efferent arteriole, and then we have another network surrounding the tubules of the nephrons. This is called they are called peritubular capillaries. They're going to be flowing into the vasa recta and draining into the interlobular veins. These is going to be the interlobular veins. Then we get back the blood toward the venous system, and if we can remember the name for the arteries, then we can remember the name for the veins. The interlobular or cortical radiate veins, they're going to be found in the cortex. They are collecting blood from the peritubular capillaries and vasa recta, and they are delivering blood into the arcuate veins. Then we have the arcuate veins, again, traveling along the boundary between the medulla and the cortex, and they are collecting blood from the cortical radiate veins, and they are delivering the blood into the interlobar veins. The interlobar veins traveling toward the renal vein within the renal column right here, and they are collecting blood from the arcuate veins, and they are delivering blood into the renal vein. And we have no segmental veins, by the way. And finally, we have the renal vein, which is going to be draining directly on the inferior vena cava. This is the image of the nephron, which is the functional unit of the kidney. That means it's a structure that performs the primary function of the kidney, which is filtering blood and producing urine. The nephron is divided in two structures, the renal corpuscle and the renal tubules. The renal corpuscles consists of the capillaries network, which is called glomerulus, and the outer Bowman capsule or glomerular capsule. And this glomerular capsule is the third portion of the renal tubules. We have sequentially, we have the sequence going to be the proximal convoluted tubule. Then we have this loop nephron loop, which is the loop of Henle, the descending limb and the ascending limb. Then we have the distal convoluted tubule, and they're going to be draining the urine into the collecting duct. Again, we have these highly folded tubules, proximal and distal. They are called proximal and distal convoluted tubules. We have this loop, which is the loop of Henle, in order to produce the urine. And finally, we are draining the urine into the collecting duct. Regarding the processes, in order to form the urine, we have three processes: filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. The filtration, of course, here in the glomerulus and the corpuscle, is going to be the movement of material across the membrane. Then we have the reabsorption of mostly of everything it's filtrated, 99%. And finally, we have the secretion of waste and